He woke up to the sound of rain drumming on the roof of his car, his home for the past 5 months. Marcus Daniels blinked through the fogged window, the world outside gray and blurred. Another cold morning in Cleveland. The seatbelt imprint on his cheek reminded him he'd fallen asleep halfway through reading his old physics textbook again. He had dreams once, to graduate high school, maybe study engineering, build things that mattered. But right now, he'd settle for a hot shower and a warm meal. His car, a rusted '03 Honda Civic, sat quietly behind a strip of stores near Shaker Square Mall. The trunk was packed with his whole life, a duffel bag of clothes, a folded blanket, a few notebooks, and a photo of his mom, Denise. Denise had always been the strong one, working double shifts at the factory until layoffs hit last spring. The rent went unpaid, bills piled up, and one eviction notice later, they were living on borrowed time. When she got sick and had to move into a women's shelter downtown, Marcus refused to follow. The shelter was overcrowded, and he didn't want her worrying about him. So, he stayed behind, sleeping in his car, washing up in public restrooms, and working odd shifts at a nearby diner. He told himself it was temporary. Just a phase. But 5 months had a way of changing temporary into reality. That morning, Marcus sat in the driver's seat staring at the mall across the parking lot. It was warm inside, full of lights and smells he missed, cinnamon pretzels, popcorn, perfume from department stores. He went there sometimes, pretending he had somewhere to be. Sometimes he'd walk into stores just to feel normal again. Today, he had $8 left. He decided to spend $2 on breakfast and save the rest for gas. He shoved his worn notebook into his backpack and stepped out. The rain had slowed, leaving puddles that reflected the sky like shattered glass. He pulled his hoodie tighter and walked toward the entrance. Inside the mall, the warmth hit him first, then the music, the chatter, the echo of footsteps on polished tiles. For a few seconds, he felt invisible, which was exactly what he wanted. At the food court, he bought a small coffee and a bagel. He sat in a corner, pretending to scroll his phone. His reflection in the window looked older than 17, tired eyes, cracked lips, a boy trying to act like a man. He thought about his mom. About how he'd promised her that no matter what, he'd finish school. Maybe this week he'd talk to the school counselor about re-enrolling. Maybe. That's when he noticed the boy. Across the hall, near the escalator, a small figure stood alone, maybe 8 years old, dark blonde hair, clutching a toy car tight against his chest. His eyes darted around, panic rising. He looked lost. Marcus watched for a minute, waiting for someone, a parent, a mall worker, anyone, to notice. People passed by, too busy to care. The boy's lip trembled. He whispered something under his breath that only fear could translate. Marcus sighed, setting his coffee down. "Come on, man," he muttered to himself, standing up. "Don't get involved." But he couldn't walk away. He approached slowly, careful not to startle the kid. "Hey, little man," Marcus said softly. "You okay? You lost?" The boy looked up, eyes wide with tears. I can't find my mom." Marcus crouched down to meet his eyes. "All right, no worries. We'll figure it out. You remember where you last saw her?" The kid sniffled. "She was talking on the phone. Then I saw a toy store and I just wanted to look." Marcus smiled gently. "Happens to the best of us. What's your name?" "Jacob," the boy whispered. "Well, Jacob, I'm Marcus. And we're gonna find your mom." D.L. The boy nodded, holding tighter to his toy car. They began walking down the corridor together. Marcus kept scanning the crowd, hoping to see a frantic parent rushing toward them. But no one came. At the information desk, the attendant barely looked up when Marcus explained. "Lost child? Security's making rounds. They'll find her soon," she said flatly. Marcus frowned. "Yeah, but can you call over the intercom?" "He's scared." "Can't do that without a police report," she replied, turning back to her screen. He clenched his jaw, frustration building. The system never moved fast enough when people actually needed it. So he took Jacob's hand and said, "All right, buddy, let's do this ourselves." Yes. They searched every corner of the mall. The bookstore. The toy section. The food court again. With each minute, Jacob's little voice grew shakier. "Do you think she left me?" he asked, voice breaking. Marcus stopped. "Hey, don't say that. She's probably just looking everywhere for you." Parents panicked too. Something about his own words stung him. He thought of Denise, how he'd left her at that shelter, telling her he'd be fine. Was she panicking too? Did she worry every night whether he'd made it through another cold one? He shook the thought away. "Let's check one more place," he said, forcing a smile. They reached the center court, a wide, open space near the escalators, decorated with holiday lights still hanging from last month. The mall speakers played a soft jazz tune. Crowds moved like waves around them. Marcus lifted Jacob onto a bench so he could see better. "Anything look familiar?" Jacob scanned the crowd, hope flickering and fading again. Then he pointed suddenly. "Wait," he said. Marcus followed his gaze. A tall man in a tailored suit stood across the court, scanning faces, his expression twisted with worry. His hair was slicked back, but his composure was cracking fast. "Dad!" Jacob shouted. Marcus blinked. "Dad?" The man's head snapped toward them, and in that instant, relief flooded his face. He rushed across the floor, calling out his son's name. The boy leapt off the bench, running into his arms. Marcus stood still, watching his father and son embrace tightly, the kind of hug that makes time stop. Around them, the crowd didn't even notice. But Marcus did. He saw everything, the trembling hands, the whispered "I thought I lost you," the tears the man tried to hide. The moment was pure, real, the kind of thing Marcus hadn't felt in a long time. The man looked up finally, eyes locking on Marcus. He walked over, still holding Jacob's hand. "Did you stay with him?" the man asked. Marcus nodded. "Yeah." He was scared. "I just wanted to help." The man exhaled, shaking his head. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me." Marcus shrugged it off. "Anyone would have done the SA. Me." The man looked him up and down, noticing the worn shoes, the faded hoodie, the exhaustion behind his polite smile. But instead of judgment, there was something else in his eyes, curiosity, maybe even guilt. He reached into his pocket. "At least let me." "No," Marcus interrupted quickly. "I didn't do it for money. Just make sure he's okay." The man paused, then nodded slowly. "What's your nah?" "Me?" "Marcus." "Well, Marcus," he said, "I hope we meet again." He turned away, guiding Jacob toward the exit. Marcus watched as they disappeared into the crowd. He picked up his backpack, ready to leave too. But something about that last look, the man's unsettled gaze, lingered. Marcus had no idea that their paths would cross again. And when they did, it would change his life forever. "How'd you find me?" Marcus asked quietly. She smiled faintly. "You told me once this was your peace place." "I guess right." Marcus chuckled weakly. "Yeah, guess you did." She stepped closer. "You found something, didn't you?" Marcus hesitated, then handed her the folder. She opened it, flipping through the pages silently. The raindrops tapped against the paper. When she looked up, her eyes were wide. "This is huge. You could blow the entire thing open." "Yeah," Marcus said softly. "Or I could destroy something that's been saving kids." Kendra closed the folder carefully. What if both things are true? What if saving others shouldn't come from hiding what's broken? Marcus looked at her, the rain running down his face. "I don't want to hurt Jacob. Or Sophia. They're good people." Kendra nodded. Then maybe the truth doesn't have to hurt them. Maybe it can heal them. For a long moment, they just stood there, the rain, the silence, the weight of choice between them. Finally, Marcus exhaled. I have to talk to Nathaniel. The next morning, Marcus walked into the foundation early. The hallways felt different, heavier, quieter, as if the building itself knew what was coming. Nathaniel was already in his office. He looked up when Marcus entered, his eyes tired but calm. I thought you might come back, he said. Marcus set the folder on the desk. You told me once that kindness isn't a transaction. You were right. But hiding behind it, that's not kindness, sir. That's fear. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, studying him silently. And what do you plan to do with that folder? I don't want to destroy what you built, Marcus said. But people deserve the truth. The ones who trusted you, they need to know what really happened. Otherwise, everything here is just another illusion. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. You think it's that simple? You think truth doesn't have casualties? Marcus stepped closer. So does silence. Nathaniel stood and walked to the window, staring out at the morning sun breaking through the rain. His reflection looked older, wearier. When I started this foundation, he said quietly, I wanted to give back. But when that scandal hit, it nearly killed everything I'd built. I buried the truth to protect my family, and to keep hope alive for others. I thought I was doing the right thing. Marcus shook his head. Maybe you were. But covering it up turned your kindness into guilt. Nathaniel turned slowly, his eyes glistening with the kind of sorrow only age can carry. You remind me of who I used to be, Marcus, before the money, before the mistakes. You see the world in black and white. I envy that. Marcus's voice softened. Maybe it's not black and white, sir. Maybe it's about choosing not what's easy, but what's honest. The room fell silent. Nathaniel sat back down, staring at the folder. His hand trembled slightly as he opened it. Then, to Marcus's surprise, he reached for his phone and pressed a button. Reeves, he said, voice steady. Prepare a public statement. Full disclosure. Everything. Reeves' shocked voice crackled through the speaker. Sir, are you sure? I'm sure, Nathaniel replied. No more shadows. He hung up and looked at Marcus. You win, son. Marcus shook his head. It's not about winning. It's about starting over, for real this time. Nathaniel nodded slowly, then smiled faintly. You know, you might have just saved me. 2 weeks later, the Carter Foundation held a press conference. Reporters filled the hall, cameras flashing. Nathaniel stood at the podium with Sophia and Marcus beside him. He looked directly at the audience, calm, composed, vulnerable. Years ago, he began, my foundation suffered a betrayal that I covered up, believing it was for the greater good. That choice, though made with intention, was wrong. Today, I take full responsibility. Our transparency begins now. The room buzzed with whispers and flashes. Nathaniel continued, voice firm. We will restructure our programs, repay what was lost, and ensure accountability. No more secrecy. No more silence. Then he turned slightly toward Marcus. And to the young man who reminded me what honesty looks like, Marcus Brown, thank you. Applause filled the hall. Cameras focused on Marcus, who stood humbled, blinking against the bright lights. In that moment, he realized something powerful. Truth didn't just expose darkness, it also revealed courage. After the conference, Sophia approached Marcus, eyes shining with gratitude. You gave him back his integrity, she said softly. Marcus smiled. He gave me back my belief in people. Then Jacob ran up, holding a small drawing. Look, Marcus. I drew us at the mall, remember? Marcus knelt down, smiling. Yeah, buddy. I remember. Jacob pointed at the drawing, 2 stick figures, one small, one tall, both smiling under a sign that said thank you. Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. "You're gonna be a great artist someday, kid." Jacob grinned. "And you're gonna be a hero." That evening, as the sun dipped low over Cleveland, Marcus drove back to the same spot by Lake Erie. The sky blazed with orange and gold. He parked the car, stepped out, and looked out over the water, the same water that had once reflected his doubts. Now, it reflected something else, peace. He pulled out his old notebook, the one with his 3 goals, and flipped it open. The words were still there. 1. Get back in school. 2. Find a real job. 3. Get mom out of the shelter. He smiled softly. One by one, he checked each box, not because everything was perfect, but because he'd finally learned the real meaning of having enough. Then he added a 4th line beneath the others. 4. Keep choosing kindness, even when it costs something. The wind brushed against his face, and for the first time in years, Marcus felt light, like the weight he'd been carrying had finally fallen away. As he turned to leave, he noticed a figure standing a few feet away, Nathaniel. "I thought you'd be here," Nathaniel said quietly. Marcus smiled faintly. "You really don't give up, do you?" Nathaniel chuckled. "Neither do you." They stood side by side, watching the sunset. "I've been thinking," Nathaniel said. "I want you to lead the next mentorship batch. You've lived what I only teach." Marcus turned to him, eyes wide. "Me?" Nathaniel nodded. "You've earned it." For a moment, Marcus was speechless. Then he smiled, genuine and bright. "I'll do it. But on one condition." Nathaniel raised a brow. "Name it." Marcus looked out at the horizon. "No more shadows. Everything we do, open, honest, and real." Nathaniel smiled softly. "Deal." They shook hands, not as a mentor and student anymore, but as 2 men who'd walked through darkness and found light together. The camera of your story fades out on the 2 of them standing by the lake, the orange sky stretching above. Sometimes the richest people aren't the ones with money, the narration closes softly. They're the ones who give, even when the world gives them nothing back. Marcus arrived early the next morning, hours before anyone else. The building was quiet, sunlight spilling faintly through the tall glass panels. He moved carefully through the hall, the sound of his sneakers echoing. His heart raced, but curiosity burned stronger than fear. He reached Nathaniel's office. The door was locked, but a small maintenance panel beside it had been left open. Inside hung a spare keycard. Marcus hesitated for a long moment, whispering to himself, "You're not stealing. You're just looking for truth." He swiped the card. The lock beeped and clicked open. Inside, the room was still, bookshelves, paintings, polished wood. The safe behind the painting stared back at him like a silent guardian. Marcus crouched and examined it. No keypad, just a thumbprint scanner. He sighed. Figures. He turned to leave, but something else caught his eye, a hidden door half concealed by the curtains. A faint draft blew through its edges. He pushed it open. Behind it was a dimly lit corridor leading to a small underground archive room. The walls were lined with boxes, folders, and digital drives labeled with years and project code. Marcus picked one up, Project Sunrise 2018. Inside were documents showing donations from hundreds of sponsors, all legit, but the expenditure column was blacked OU. Another folder read Mentorship Renewal 2020, and again, the same pattern, missing data, sealed audits. His eyes widened. Was this what they were hiding? Suddenly, a voice behind him made him freeze. Curiosity, Nathaniel said quietly, can be a dangerous thing. Marcus turned slowly. Nathaniel stood at the doorway, calm but cold. The warm smile was gone. I wasn't. Nathaniel raised a hand. Save it. I knew you'd come here eventually. Marcus frowned. You wanted me to. Nathaniel stepped closer, his face unreadable. Yes. Because I needed to see whether you're ready to know the truth. The truth? Marcus asked, voice trembling. Nathaniel sighed. Those files, they're not proof of corruption, Marcus. They're proof of failure. He walked to the shelves, picking up one folder gently. Years ago, I tried to build this foundation honestly. But one of my partners used it to funnel money. By the time I discovered it, the damage was done. We lost millions, trust, and lives changed forever. Marcus blinked. So you've been covering it up? Nathaniel looked at him with quiet pain. I've been trying to fix it. The blacked out sections, those are restitution accounts. I've spent years repaying what was lost, protecting the donors, rebuilding the legacy. Marcus shook his head. Why not tell the truth? Because the truth, Nathaniel said heavily, would destroy everything we're trying to rebuild, including programs like the one that helped you. Marcus took a step forward. You preach honesty and redemption. But you're living a lie. Nathaniel's eyes flickered, pride and guilt colliding. Sometimes redemption requires silence. For a long moment, neither spoke. Marcus's voice finally broke the silence. You can't heal what you hide, sir. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Then, slowly, he smiled, not with arrogance, but with something like respect. Maybe you're right, he said quietly. Maybe you're the first person here brave enough to say that to me. He turned to the folder, opened it, and handed it to Marcus. If you really want the truth, take it. But understand, once you do, everything changes. Marcus stared at it, the papers, the secrets, the power to expose everything. He thought of Jacob's innocent smile. Of Sophia's kindness. Of Kendra's warning. Gee. Then he looked Nathaniel in the eye. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Nathaniel nodded slowly. Then your story begins now, Marcus. As Marcus walked out of the secret room with the truth in his hands, he didn't realize, sometimes, exposing light can also cast a longer shadow. Marcus walked out of the Carter Foundation building with the folder clutched in his hands, the papers pressing against his chest like a heartbeat. Rain had begun to fall, soft at first, then steadier, washing the city in streaks of sylph. He didn't know where to go. Every path led to a different consequence. If he exposed what he'd found, the truth would destroy the Carters, maybe even end the programs that helped hundreds like him. If he stayed silent, he'd be protecting a lie. He stopped under a streetlight, the glow flickering over his damp face. For the first time in a long while, Marcus felt small again, just a boy caught between what was right and what was real. That night, he drove to the only place he could think clearly, the edge of Lake Erie. The wind was cold, biting at his skin. He sat on the hood of his car, staring out at the water, the folder beside him. A voice startled him. You always come here when you need to think? He turned, it was Kendra. She held an umbrella over her head, her curly hair damp from the mist. Marcus arrived at the Carter Foundation campus on a Monday morning, his heart pounding, palms slightly damp. The glass doors opened automatically, revealing a wide hallway lined with motivational quotes, photos of graduates, and awards. He paused at one picture, Nathaniel shaking hands with the mayor. The caption read, Restoring Hope, one youth at a time. He couldn't help but wonder, is all of this really as good as it looks? Marcus, a cheerful voice called. He turned to see Kendra, a lively girl with curly hair and bright brown eyes, maybe a year younger than him. She wore the foundation badge proudly. Hey! You're the new guy, right? Yeah, Marcus said, smiling shyly. First day. She grinned. You'll fit right in. Mr. Carter says you've got something special. Don't know what it is yet, but he's usually right. Marcus laughed lightly. Guess I'll find out. They walked into the main hall where about 20 teens sat in a semicircle. At the front, Nathaniel stood beside a projector screen. His voice carried warmth and quiet authority. Good morning, everyone, he began. You're not just participants, you're investments in the future. This program exists because each of you carries a story that deserves to continue. Soft instrumental swells, like rising sunlight. He looked around the room, and when his eyes met Marcus's, he smiled subtly. For the first few weeks, Marcus threw himself into the sessions, financial literacy, public speaking, and self-development workshops. Nathaniel checked in regularly, offering guidance like a father would. At first, everything seemed perfect. Too perfect. Marcus began noticing things that didn't quite add up. One afternoon, he entered the records room to return a file. The door was half open, and inside, Nathaniel's assistant, Mr. Reeves, was speaking quietly with another staff member. "The report's missing," Reeves whispered sharply. "It's supposed to be sealed. If the auditors ask again." Marcus froze. Reeves turned, sensing movement, but Marcus quickly slipped out before being seen. Low suspense tone fades in briefly. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. His mind kept replaying those words, sealed reports, auditors. Was something wrong with the foundation? Or was he just overthinking? The next day, Nathaniel personally called him to his office. "Marcus, you've been doing great," he said warmly. "I wanted to offer you something special, a paid position here. Part-time, but official." Marcus blinked. "Really?" Nathaniel nodded. "You'd assist with youth outreach. You've got empathy, that's rare." Marcus smiled, but something inside him stirred uneasily. "I'd love that, sir." "Thank you." As he stood to leave, Nathaniel's expression shifted. "Marcus, you've been through life's hardest lessons. That pain, use it. Don't let the past define you." Marcus nodded slowly. "I'll try." Soft hopeful cue fades in. The weeks rolled on. He started feeling like he belonged, eating lunch with Kendra, laughing during workshops, even visiting Jacob on weekends. But deep down, that small whisper of doubt wouldn't go away. Why? The foundation looked flawless from the outside, but behind its walls, he could feel the weight of hidden things. One Friday evening, as he was closing the training hall, he saw Reeves again, slipping into Nathaniel's office with a folder labeled Confidential Audit Records. Marcus stepped closer, his curiosity pulling him forward. Through the narrow glass panel, he saw Reeves place the folder on Nathaniel's desk. Nathaniel glanced at it, frowning. "Ing." Then, to Marcus's shock, Nathaniel took the folder and locked it in a safe behind a painting. Marcus backed away quickly before he was noticed. His heartbeat thundered. Why would a man who preached transparency be hiding reports? That night, Marcus sat in his car, staring at the foundation building glowing under the moonlight. He wanted to believe Nathaniel's kindness was real. But the more he saw, the less it felt right. He picked up his phone, hesitated, then texted Kendra. "Hey, random question. You ever feel like this place hides something?" Her reply came a minute later. "Marcus, don't dig too deep. Some things here are what they seem." Marcus froze. His hands trembled as he read it. Ein. In that single message, Marcus realized he wasn't the only one questioning the truth. And that meant one thing: someone else already knew the secret. 3 days passed before Marcus saw the Carters again. He'd spent those nights lying awake, thinking about the offer, replaying every word Nathaniel said. He wanted to believe it. He really did, but life had taught him that every smile had a condition. That afternoon, as he walked home from the diner, a black car slowed beside him. The tinted window rolled down. It was Nathaniel's driver. "Mr. Carter would like to see you," he said politely. Marcus hesitated, then nodded and got in. The car drove through quiet, leafy streets before stopping at a massive iron gate. The Carter mansion stood beyond, grand but serene, surrounded by trees and open gardens. Inside, Marcus was led into a study lined with books and portraits. Nathaniel was there, seated behind a desk, smiling warmly. Why? Glad you came, Marcus, he said. I was hoping we could talk privately. Marcus sat down, uneasy. About the program? Partly, Nathaniel replied. But also about you. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a file. Marcus's name was printed neatly on the tab. Marcus frowned. You have my information? Nathaniel nodded. Basic details. I like to know the people I help. It's how we tailor support. But, how did you? Nathaniel cut in gently. You've had a hard few years. I know your mother's been ill, that you left school to help her. You've moved twice, tried to stay afloat. That shows strength, Marcus. Marcus froze, heart pounding. You looked me up? Nathaniel leaned forward. I did. Not to pry, to understand. People can't be helped if we don't know what they need. Marcus's throat tightened. That feels invasive. Nathaniel smiled faintly. Maybe. But necessary. Soft tension, heartbeat underscoring the scene. Then Nathaniel's tone softened again. Listen, Marcus. I don't just see a boy who saved my son. I see someone fighting to hold on to decency in a world that forgot how to care. I want to help you, not just with money, but with direction. Marcus swallowed hard. Why are you so sure I won't disappoint you? Nathaniel chuckled. Because I've already seen your heart in action. He stood, walking toward the window. I've met many people with talent, but very few with compassion. That's rarer, and far more valuable. Marcus stayed silent, uncertain whether to feel flattered or afraid. Finally, Nathaniel turned back. The mentorship begins next week. I'd like you to be one of the first to join. Marcus hesitated, then nodded slowly. All right. I'll do it. Nathaniel smiled. Good. You won't regret this. As Marcus left, he noticed something on the hallway table, a framed newspaper clipping. The headline read, Carter Industries Scandal Resurfaces, Allegations of Misused Charity Funds. Before he could read further, Sophia appeared, smiling warmly. Marcus! So glad you're here again. He smiled back weakly, pocketing his curiosity. Good to see you, ma'am. She patted his shoulder. You've made the right choice. Nathaniel truly believes in you. As he stepped outside, the air felt heavier, a strange mix of hope and unity. When the car drove him back, Marcus pulled out his phone and searched Carter Foundation scandal. But no results appeared, like it had been said. He looked up, frowning. Maybe, he thought, kindness does come with shadows. Marcus didn't know it yet, but he was walking into a world where kindness could save a soul, or destroy it. Marcus sat on his small bed that night, the soft hum of streetlights outside his window. The envelope Sophia Carter gave him still sat on his table, as if daring him to believe in something better. He picked it up again, reading the note for the 10th time. Everyone deserves a beginning. The words echoed in his head, quiet but persistent. For someone who'd spent years being overlooked, those words felt almost dangerous, because they offered hope, and hope had hurt before. He tucked the money into his wallet, washed up, and prepared for his shift the next morning. But halfway through his first order, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Hello? Marcus, came a familiar voice, deep, calm. It was Nathaniel Carter. Marcus froze. Yes, sir. I hope I'm not disturbing you, Nathaniel said politely. But I wanted to personally invite you to something this weekend. A small youth event at our foundation center. We're honoring young people who've made a difference. Me? Marcus asked, confused. Nathaniel chuckled. Well, you did help my son. But more than that, you showed heart. That's worth celebrating. Marcus wanted to decline, his instinct said people didn't give without taking. But something in Nathaniel's tone felt genuine. All right, he said slowly. I'll be there. Nathaniel's voice warmed. Good. Dress comfortably. My driver will pick you up. When the call ended, Marcus stood still, the phone pressed to his chest. For the first time in years, someone invited him somewhere without pity, just belief. That Saturday, Marcus stood outside the gleaming Carter Foundation building. Glass walls reflected the morning sun, and a banner above the entrance read, Building Futures, Changing Story. Yes. Inside, laughter and chatter filled the hall. Young people from different backgrounds mingled, students, interns, artists. Everyone looked hopeful, dressed neatly, their futures shimmering ahead. Marcus felt out of place in his plain shirt and worn jeans. But then Jacob spotted him and ran over. Marcus! You came. Nathaniel followed, smiling. You look great, son. Thanks, Marcus said, awkwardly scratching his neck. They moved through the event, speeches, introductions, and short documentaries showing how the foundation changed lives. Marcus listened quietly, eyes wide. Every story sounded impossible: kids pulled from homelessness, young people who became entrepreneurs, students who found scholarships abroad. It felt unreal. Nathaniel turned to him at one point. See, Marcus, everyone here started with nothing. All they needed was one hand to lift them. Marcus nodded. I get that, sir. Do you? Nathaniel asked softly. Because I think you still don't believe you deserve that hand. The words hit hard. Marcus looked down. It's not that, it's just, people don't help for free. Nathaniel smiled faintly. That's true in business. But kindness is never a transaction, Marcus. It's an investment in humanity. Later, as the event ended, Nathaniel led Marcus to a quieter corner. I meant what I said, he began. You have potential. I'd like you to join our mentorship program. We'll handle your school re-enrollment, provide transportation, and... Marcus blinked. Wait, all that? Why me? Nathaniel studied him carefully. Because I see myself in you. I grew up on these same streets. Someone gave me a chance once. Now it's my turn. The sincerity in his voice shook Marcus. Still, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered, nobody gives without reason. Nathaniel seemed to sense it. You don't have to decide now, he said kindly. Just know that the offer stands. As Marcus left the building, the sky began to darken with rain. He looked back once, watching the Carters through the glass, Nathaniel talking with investors, Sophia helping volunteers, Jacob playing with our kids. They looked like everything he'd ever wished for: family, purpose, belonging. But something about it all felt too perfect. Behind that glass, in all that perfection, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching him. 2 days later, Marcus stood outside the diner in his faded uniform, staring at the card again. He hadn't called. Not yet. Something about it felt unreal, too good to be true. Rich men didn't help kids like him without a reason. Still, the thought lingered. When you're ready to change your story. Change sounded nice. But trust? That was harder. He folded the card and slid it back into his wallet before stepping inside. The diner smelled like frying oil and burnt coffee, familiar, loud, and a little depressing. Marcus worked the morning shift, cleaning tables, refilling cups, and pretending he didn't notice people's stare. His manager barked orders from the counter while the radio played old rock songs. Life was routine, predictable, until the bell above the door jingled. He looked up, and froze. Standing there, dressed far too elegantly for the diner, was Nathaniel Carter. Behind him, Jacob waved excitedly. Marcus, the boy shouted, nearly bumping into a waitress. We found you. Nathaniel smiled as he approached the counter. I hope you don't mind the surprise. Marcus blinked. You found where I work? Jacob insisted, Nathaniel said. And I wanted to see how you were doing. Marcus looked around nervously. Yeah, I'm good. Just working. The manager's eyes widened as Nathaniel handed him a business card. Mind if I borrow your employee for a few minutes? He asked Smothel. Why? Within seconds, Marcus was off duty, still confused as Nathaniel guided him outside. Music picks up softly, curious undertone. I didn't mean to interrupt your shift, Nathaniel said. But my wife wanted to meet you. She's waiting in the car. Marcus hesitated, then followed them to a sleek black SUV parked nearby. Inside sat Sophia Carter, elegant, kind-eyed, and warm in a way that felt motheral. Why? She smiled the moment she saw Marcus. So you're the young man who helped our son? Marcus nodded awkwardly. Yes, ma'am. Just glad he's safe. She turned to her husband. Nathaniel told me everything. You didn't have to do what you did. That means a lot. Marcus shrugged, unsure how to respond. Compliments still felt strange. Jacob leaned over from the back seat. Mom! Can we take Marcus to lunch? Please? Sophia laughed softly. You really like this young man, don't you? Nathaniel added, Actually, that's what I wanted to talk about. We have a program through my foundation. It's not charity, it's a second chance for youth who show potential and compassion. You fit that perfectly. Marcus's heart raced. You don't even know me. Nathaniel smiled. Maybe not yet. But I know what I saw, a kid who helped my son when the world walked by. Soft emotional swell in the music. Marcus didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to accept, to believe someone actually saw worth in him. Another part whispered that it was too risky, that kindness from the rich always came with strings. I'll think about it, he said finally. That's all I ask, Nathaniel replied. Before leaving, Sophia handed Marcus a small envelope. Just something to get you through the week, she said gentle. Why? Marcus tried to refuse, but she insisted. It's not payment. It's hope. When they drove off, Marcus opened the envelope. Inside was a folded note that read, Everyone deserves a beginning, even if life starts you at the bottom. Sophia Carter. And beneath it, a $100 bill. Marcus stared at it, stunned. He hadn't seen that much money in months. Music quiets, introspective tone. He leaned against his car, watching their SUV disappear down the street. For the first time in a long while, he felt something unfamiliar, possibly Thai. But in the back of his mind, one question wouldn't fade. Why him? Why was a billionaire family suddenly so interested in a homeless teenager from Cleveland? Low heartbeat sound fades in, soft suspense tone builds. Marcus folded the note, tucked it away, and whispered to himself. Whatever this is, it's not OV. Puzzle piece mini cliffhanger. He didn't know it yet, but the next time he saw the Carters, they wouldn't just change his life. They'd test it. The smell of roasted coffee filled the air as Marcus followed Jacob and his father into the small cafe tucked between a bookstore and a jewelry shop. The place looked expensive, polished wood, soft lighting, and that quiet hum that came from people who never worried about money. Nathaniel Carter moved with the calm confidence of a man used to being listened to. His suit was crisp, his watch gleamed faintly under the lights. But his eyes, sharp and restless, told another story. He pulled out a chair for Jacob, motioned Marcus to sit, then ordered 3 drinks without looking at the menu. 2 hot chocolates and 1 black coffee, he said to the waiter, then turned to Marcus. Unless you prefer something else. Marcus shook his head. That's fine, thank you. They sat in silence for a moment. The only sound was Jacob humming quietly and tapping his toy car on the table. Nathaniel leaned forward, studying Marcus like a puzzle. You helped my son twice now. That's not something I take lightly. Marcus shrugged, uneasy under the man's gaze. Just happened to be there, sir. I didn't do anything special. Nathaniel smiled faintly. Doing the right thing when no one's watching, that's special. Marcus looked down. Compliments like that felt foreign. When the drinks arrived, Jacob grinned and said, "Dad, Marcus helped me look everywhere yesterday. He even told jokes to make me laugh." Nathaniel smiled at his son, but when his eyes shifted back to Marcus, the warmth turned thoughtful. "You're in high shoe." "L. was," Marcus said quietly. "Had to take some time off." Nathaniel nodded slowly, like he already suspected that. "And your parents?" Marcus hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "It's just me and my mom. She's trying to get back on her feet." "Where do you live?" Nathaniel asked casually. Marcus' chest tightened. "Not far," he said, forcing a smile. "We manage." The man didn't press further. But something in his eyes said he already knew, maybe from the worn clothes, maybe from the guarded too. He changed the subject. "I run a foundation," he said. "We help young people find opportunities, education, mentorship, stability." "Ever heard of the Carter Youth Initiative?" Marcus shook his head. "Can't say I have." Nathaniel smiled slightly. "Maybe you will soon." Jacob interrupted. "Dad, can Marcus come to our house? He's nice." Marcus laughed. "Easy, little man. I'm sure your parents have plans." Nathaniel chuckled but said nothing. He seemed lost in thought. As they finished, Marcus excused himself politely. "I should go, my shift starts so on." Nathaniel stood to shake his hand. "Marcus, thank you again." "Truly." "Glad to help," Marcus replied. Outside the cafe, Marcus felt eyes on him again. He turned, and there he was. The man in the black suit. Same earpiece. Watching from near the escalator. Marcus frowned. He'd noticed him too many times now to call it coincidence. He started walking faster toward the exit. The man followed, keeping a calm distance, pretending to scroll his phone. Marcus cut through the crowd, weaving past shoppers, his heartbeat climbing. By the time he reached the parking lot, the man was gone. Marcus exhaled sharply, trying to shake off the unease. Maybe it was security. Maybe just paranoia. Either way, he told himself to forget it. He had work to get to. But as he opened the door of his old car, he noticed something tucked under the windshield wiper, a small, cream-colored card. He unfolded it. Carter Foundation, Youth Development Division. When you're ready to change your story, call this in. Umber. Nathaniel Carter. Marcus stared at it for a long time, the rain beginning to fall again. He didn't know it yet, but this was no random encounter. It was the beginning of something far bigger than he could imagine. He slipped the card into his pocket, unaware that one simple call would open the door to a world he never thought he'd enter. Marcus didn't plan to return to the mall the next day. He'd already decided that one day inside was enough, too many people, too many memories. But as he sat in his car that morning, staring at the faded photo of his mom taped to the dashboard, something inside him shifted. He thought about that little boy, Jacob. The fear in his eyes. The relief when he found his father. It reminded Marcus that even when you have nothing, you can still give something. Kindness didn't cost money, and for him, that mattered. He sipped what was left of his cheap coffee, shoved on his hoodie, and decided to walk through the mall again, maybe grab a sandwich before his shift at the diner. The rain had stopped, and the air was cold but calm. Inside, the mall buzzed with weekend energy, kids laughing, couples shopping, music spilling from store speakers. For most people, it was just another Saturday. For Marcus, it was a place to blend in, a few hours of pretending he was part of the Crow, WD. As he walked past the arcade, he noticed a small scene unfolding near the entrance. A little girl had dropped her ice cream, and her mom quickly bought her another. It was ordinary, but for Marcus, it hit deeper. He hadn't had a normal moment like that in years. He sat down near the food court, pulling out his notebook. On the first page were his goals, written months ago in shaky handwriting. 1. Get back in school. 2. Find a real job. 3. Get mom out of the shelter. He read the list every morning like a prayer. Maybe someday, he whispered. Then a voice interrupted, small and hesitant. Hey, you're the guy from yesterday. Marcus looked up. Standing a few feet away was Jacob, the same boy he'd helped. His toy car still clutched in one hand, but now his clothes were cleaner and his hair neatly combed. Jacob? Marcus blinked. Hey, buddy. You okay? You shouldn't be walking around alone again. The boy grinned. My dad's here. He's in a meeting. Mom's shopping. They said I could get a pretzel while I wait. Marcus chuckled. Back for the pretzels, huh? Good choice. Jacob nodded, then paused. My dad told me to say thank you. He said you helped me when nobody else did. Yeah, well, Marcus said with a shrug, someone's gotta look out for the little guys. Jacob's eyes sparkled. My dad said maybe we'll see you again. Marcus smiled faintly. Looks like he was right. They chatted for a few minutes about school, toys, and Jacob's dream of becoming a pilot. For a brief moment, Marcus forgot he was a homeless teen. He was just a big brother figure, someone who mattered. But then something strange happened. As Jacob turned to wave goodbye and walk toward the pretzel stand, Marcus noticed a man standing by the railing on the upper floor, watching them. He wasn't dressed like a mall worker. His black suit was too sharp, his expression too intent. And his eyes, fixed on Marcus. The man spoke briefly into a small earpiece, then disappeared into the crowd. Marcus frowned. Weird, he muttered, brushing it off. But the feeling stayed. Minutes later, Jacob returned with a pretzel bag in one hand and a napkin in the other. My dad's still in a meeting, he said. Want to share? Marcus hesitated. Pride told him to say no, but hunger said yes. All right, maybe just one bite, he said with a grin. They sat together on the bench, sharing food and laughter that didn't belong to the same world. The contrast was quiet but powerful, a boy born into privilege, and another born into struggle, somehow sitting side by side like old friends. Do you live around here? Jacob asked suddenly. Marcus's smile faded for a split second. Kind of, he said vaguely. Not too far. You have a car? Marcus nodded. Yeah. Old one. My buddy. Cool. My dad has like 5 cars, Jacob said proudly. One of them's electric and talks when you open the door. Marcus laughed softly. Guess mine missed that update. They shared another small laugh before Jacob's tone turned curious again. You go to school? Marcus paused, then lied gently. Not right now. Taking a break. Jacob tilted his head. Why? Marcus sighed. Sometimes life gets complicated. The boy nodded thoughtfully, as if he understood more than his age should allow. Before Marcus could say more, a sudden voice echoed behind them, firm, controlled, but slightly shaken. Jacob! They both turned. It was Nathaniel Carter, walking fast, his polished shoes clicking sharply on the tiles. Dad! Jacob ran to him, smiling. I got a pretzel. And look, it's Marcus, the guy who helped me yesterday. Nathaniel's eyes softened at the sight, but his face carried something else, a mix of surprise and guilt. He approached slowly, extending a hand toe. Ard Marcus. I didn't expect to see you again, Nathaniel said. His voice carried weight, the kind that came from boardrooms and big decisions. Guess fate doesn't care about schedules, Marcus replied lightly. Nathaniel looked around for a second, then gestured toward the nearby cafe. I owe you more than just a thank you. Join us for coffee? My treat. Marcus hesitated. I don't want to intrude. I insist, Nathaniel said, cutting him off with polite authority. Jacob grinned. Come on, Marcus. They have chocolate muffins. Marcus looked at the little boy's hopeful face, then at Nathaniel's serious one. A part of him wanted to run. He didn't belong at a table with people like them. But something told him this moment was important. All right, he said finally. Coffee so. Un's good. As they walked toward the cafe, Marcus caught a reflection in one of the store windows. The same suited man from earlier, the one with the earpiece, was back, watching them again. This time, he wasn't pretending to browse. He was following them. Music fades out slowly, leaving a single low piano note of tension. Marcus didn't know who the man was or why he cared. But deep down, he could feel it. This wasn't just about a lost boy anymore. Something bigger was waiting ahead.